Go.
Hey everybody, my name is Terry Swails and I am a television meteorologist. My career has expanded over 43 years. Most of it was done in eastern Iowa, although a little bit in parts of Illinois as well. Spent a lot of time in the Quad Cities. About 26 years of my career was actually on air in the Quad Cities. So what does a television meteorologist do? Well, obviously there's two elements there that are very important to my job. One is the television aspect, where I need to be able to communicate to you and tell you in understandable terms what the forecast is going to do. So I have to be able to understand weather and also be able to interpret what the weather maps say, but I also have to be able to communicate that information to you so that you understand it. Those are the two big components of my job. And there are a lot of people that work in television and go to school to get broadcasting careers or journalism careers. So I have that part of it. But then you also have to have the science and understanding of meteorology and the weather that surrounds us. And a lot of people also go to school just for that aspect of learning as well. So it's kind of a double-pronged deal there. When I started out in television, we did not have computers. And so at that point in time, weather was much simpler to present. We didn't have all the graphics and the animation and the moving things that you see on the screens now and the Doppler radars. So the advent of the computer has really changed my life and all of us in broadcasting weather, because now we can show the weather in a much different way, a much more understandable way that I think it makes it much more compelling and interesting. Probably the biggest advances, though, that I have seen in my lifetime are the computers that we use and the Doppler radars, that sort of thing. That has really made my job specialized. Nobody can walk in off the street and become a television meteorologist in today's world. You have to have that meteorological background, that degree in meteorology to do what I do. So that's very important. You're going to have to be able to get through the science end of that, which can be challenging. There is a lot of math involved in that, and some chemistry, things like that. So it's not an easy major. And then again, you also have to be able to get up in front of a camera and talk about it. And I know a lot of guys and gals that are very, very smart, but they're not good communicators. So if you can't convey what's happening out there, it's going to make it difficult for you to last in television. So some people try it and they just find out that ultimately they just don't have what it takes. But personally for me, it's worked out really well. And like I say, I lasted for 43 years in the business, which is a pretty long time. The hours, though, they're significant. You are always at the beck and call of the weather. Whenever there was severe weather, as the chief meteorologist, I'm the guy who's expected to be out in front of that. And so I coordinate all my other staff members. We all have to be in the office working when there is severe weather. And that could include tornadoes, it could include blizzards, and just about everything in between, like the derecho that some of us experienced here this past summer. And so on those days, there's times when I might actually be on the air 3 or 4 consecutive hours without a break. And that is very intense because you're conveying life-threatening information, particularly in the cases of tornadoes. And I have had some long-lasting outbreaks where the storms have passed all the way across Iowa and into Illinois. And until they got out of the area, I was expected to be on the air and talk about it. And so that's a pretty intense time, and you really need to do your job well. It could cost people their lives if you don't get the right information to them in a timely fashion. So that's pretty important, to say the least. But the other thing is that I personally just love weather. It is my great passion in life, and I'm continually learning and have all of my career. And so to be able to do something that I enjoy and make it meaningful for people, for me is something that I really like about my job. It can also be pretty rewarding financially if you're good at what you do. But you're going to start out at the lowest level. You're going to have to work mornings. You're going to have to work weekends. You're going to have to work your way up the ladder to actually get what I would consider to be a really good salary. And for those with the talent, that opportunity is certainly there. But it is difficult, particularly now in this day and age when we have a lot of corporations that own most of the television stations. And when that happens, you don't have local ownership. The people that own your station are somewhere off in another part of the country and don't necessarily even know who you are, but they're the ones that pay your salary. And in this day and age, when they have 150 television stations, something like that, the pay is not as good now as it was 20 or so years ago when we had what I would call local ownership. So that's changed a lot. But if you're really good, and I know guys like Tom Skilling, who works at WGN in Chicago, he's been there for many, many years. His salary is about $1 million per year. I know he signed a $10 million contract not too long ago, so he's done quite well for himself. I never experienced that kind of money, but I did get in at the right time and made some pretty good wages during my time in the business. But if you're going to start out, you're probably going to make somewhere around $30,000 to $40,000, and then you see where things go from there, and it kind of depends on where you go in the business. The bigger the market, and when I say market, I mean New York City or Chicago, Los Angeles, places like that, you'll get paid more money than you would in some place like Rhinelander, Wisconsin, or Bismarck, North Dakota. So it does matter the size of the market as to how much salary you will get. But if you can work your way up the ladder and find yourself in a really good position, the money will follow. That much I can assure you. Let's see. In terms of my education, as I mentioned, you do want to have that meteorology degree. And there are schools that also have the meteorology program tied in with journalism. And so you can get some experience there. And I would also suggest that you even try to do an internship, maybe when you get out of high school, before you go into your college education. That'd be a good time to maybe work for the Weather Service in the summer or something like that. Get a little experience and see what the job's like, and get your foot in the door. The more people you know, the more contacts you make, the easier it's going to be to get into the business and then ultimately move up the ladder, assuming you progress the way you think you should. Technology, that's the big thing nowadays. With the internet and the computers and Twitter and all of those things, I know you guys are into the Snapchat, all that stuff now is important to us to convey weather information as well. So not only do I do things on television, I had to utilize social media to get the word out about potential weather. And that has really changed. I didn't have that when I first started in the business either. That's something that's really come on in the last 10 to 15 years. And that's integral. You'll have to be able to have some computer skills, at least basic ones, to do those sorts of things. I guess, really in terms of technology though, our graphic systems, that's a really key component of what we do. I spend a lot of time putting together the graphics and the shows that you would see at home. I usually have about 3 and 3.5 minutes worth of time to do a weathercast in, which goes pretty quickly, believe it or not. So I have to figure out how many graphics I can put together in a show that tell the story and get it in there in 3.5 minutes. And that's very important too, because the news people have X amount of time, the sports people have X amount of time, and then we have commercials in there. And if I don't perform at the right time level, then somebody is going to lose time and we'll get behind, and somebody will pay for that, and usually they'll get mad at me. And so I really try hard to stick to my time. But there are also occasions where the weather is important enough that they will say, all right, we're going to give you an extra 30 seconds or a minute. And sometimes they'll just throw out a lot of the sports or whatever if the weather is important enough. But that's one thing about my job, is that everybody is impacted in some way, shape, or form by the weather. It is the number one reason that people watch the local news. So it's a really important position, and if you're going to be the number one station in the television market, chances are you're going to have the best weather person. And if you can be that guy, you can do really well, and you can also expect to be paid for that. And I think the other thing too is that you be part of the community. You're going to be out and about. You're going to be doing things like I'm doing right now, talking to you. And that's a really important part of the job as well. It's almost like being a politician. You're going to have to go out, you're going to have to shake hands, you're going to have to meet people, and essentially, like I say, be a part of the overall community. I personally, though, have found it to be a really rewarding job and something that I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to do. I know that I've made a difference in some people's lives, and really that's about all you can hope to do. That and the fact that you find something that you're passionate about. So the money's okay. It can certainly be better in spots, but it's enough to get by. And then for me, the rewarding element of the forecast and being involved in something that I really find passion in is making it really something that I think you'd enjoy if that's your thing. And you can expect to work hard. It is a difficult job. You're never going to make everybody happy, but in the end, you just got to worry about yourself and do the best you can and hope things work out for the best. And so I think that's pretty much the gist of my job. I'm happy to have the opportunity that I did, and I hope you guys find this interesting. And if it's the path you decide to go, I hope it all works out really well for you. And with that, I guess I'll be signing off today. Thanks.